friends, it's Jeff. We're celebrating here at Around the Circle. Our Start Here podcast, which helps folks find their type, has been the #1 Enneagram podcast on iTunes all year. This podcast channel just passed 6,000 subscribers and 2 million downloads, and we're closing in on 1,000 free members at aroundthecircle.org. More than this is the 1-year anniversary of our book. Around the Circle is out on Amazon. Kindle version is just $9. Audio version has all kinds of extras, or you can get the uber fancy print version, which has our mistyping guide. But more than this, we're moving to want to connect with you more. Real Enneagram work. We have been very aware recently. Real Enneagram work often requires real conversations. And so as we enter the next season, we're going to focus on creating more online panels and workshops. So this month, we're talking with members about coping style and how each of the types solves problems on Mondays. Our second Saturday workshop will begin hitting a new topic in August when we have 30 or 40 people assemble. And every Tuesday night, we continue to have our reading room, which presently we are wrapping up Brené Brown's Atlas of the Heart. It's on emotion and exploring how emotions overlap with the Enneagram. Also next month, and this is new, I'm going to begin speaking exclusively with men about their experience of the Enneagram. We don't often hear from men reflecting on their inner lives in these spaces, but those who do engage the Enneagram often have extraordinary stories to tell. So I'm going to try and get men together, talk shop. So if you want to connect, very easy. Go to aroundthecircle.org. Sign up for a free membership, and you will get all of our announcements, all the links to all of our free stuff. Or if it's time for you and your family to do some serious work, become a $20 member. All the links to our online classes and conversations will open up for you, and we would love to meet you. That's what I got for this month. I'm Jeff. May all good things be yours. All right, friends, it's Jeff. We're on chapter 6 of Atlas of the Heart, Brené Brown's fantastic book. This is Places We Go When We're Hurting: Anguish, Hopelessness, Despair, Sadness, and Grief. Glad you clicked on this one, aren't you? Actually, it's the case that for a lot of us, we do need to click on this. And it's no bad thing to name, as she's going to rightly say a handful of times. It's a courageous act to kind of name where you're hurting. We, if you aren't aware of this, we meet every Tuesday nights. We talk shop about this book. We talk through Enneagram, emotions, theory, thoughts about our own lives, cover the gamut in terms of engaging some of these topics. And for some of us, like, we don't have people in our lives who we're talking Enneagram with, and we need that. So if that's for you, it's not for everybody, but it might be for you. And if it is for you, go to aroundthecircle.org, sign up for a membership. You'll get all the notifications on how you can connect with us, or just direct message me on Instagram or on aroundthecircle.org, and I'll hook you up with what you need to know. But she starts off with a very difficult emotion. She starts off with anguish. And I'm going to highlight 20 quotes that stuck out to me in the book, talk shop through them. One of the things that I'm very aware of before getting into this is there's a mantra in public speaking that you should speak out of your scars and not out of your wounds. And unfortunately, I may be speaking out of my wounds today. Some stuff's kind of fresh in my heart and mind. But there's another kind of element to public speaking. In church world, sometimes the topic gets decided months in advance, or they hand you the lectionary, and you have to deal with the text in front of you. And sometimes that's just where you find yourself. And sometimes you just say, look, it's where the Spirit's taking you. And that can be a good thing. So just know I might come across a little bit emotional today, but we'll see. I'm trying to do my best on all the fronts. Anguish. Anguish is an almost unbearable and traumatic swirl of shock, incredulity, grief and powerlessness. Shock and incredulity can take our breath away, and grief and powerlessness often come from our hearts and our minds. But anguish, the combination of these experiences, not only takes away our ability to breathe, feel, and think. You'll notice body, emotions, and thought. Not only takes away our ability to breathe, feel, and think, it comes from our bones. Anguish often causes us to physically crumple in on ourselves, literally bringing us to our knees or forcing us all the way to the ground. Anguish. I don't think this is a common emotion, but it is something I imagine many of us can point to things that have made us feel this way. For me, the things that actually cause me anguish end up being kind of worldwide. Presently, pictures from Gaza, both of dead children and of the devastation of cities. I associate that with anguish. When 9/11 happened, I associated pictures of people jumping in anguish. I've gone to museums that highlight America's history of lynching. I find those particularly troubling in an anguished kind of way. Those are separate from myself. I also know what it's like to have folks who are close to me try and take their lives, and that pushes me into those spaces. And I say that just, there's kind of a Me Too element to some of this where, like, sometimes you just name the things that really hit you. But it is wise. She recounts a handful of stories that kind of take us down those roads. Lots to conclude here, which we'll get into. My second quote is from 95. It's often hard to find our way back into our bodies after experiencing anguish. This is why so much effective trauma work today is not only about reclaiming our breath, our feeling, and our thinking, notice the threefold, but also getting our bones back and returning to our bodies, getting in that space. So it's highlighting the three centers. Let's talk Enneagram for a second and deconstruct kind of what's going on inside you in this space in terms of her language. In essence, she's saying that anguish pulls you out of your body center and that you find yourself in those spaces of feeling and thinking, I think, primarily. You're thinking about your feelings of anguish. What does it look like for you to start to get up off the ground and start acting again? One of the things that's really interesting about, I'm going to highlight some Bible stuff today, apparently. The Job is one of my favorite books for all the reasons that you wouldn't think. I think Job is routinely misunderstood. One of the things that happens when Job's kids die is that he goes to the place that a whirlwind has destroyed the home they were in. There's a fire. And the text says that Job is covered in ashes. Well, the ashes are the bodies of his dead kids. And the entire book of Job is Job in the ashes of these people that he loved. The end of the book of Job has God speaking out of a whirlwind again. There's a whirlwind at the beginning, there's a whirlwind at the end, and the voice of God at the end invites Job to rise. He's been in the ashes the entire time, and God says, come, let me show you all the things I've created. Have you considered this? Have you considered this? Have you considered this? Engage your body. Gird up your loins is what the text says. It's like get your meat sack in the right spot. I find that helpful as an image, and her image is identical. Like, in these spaces of anguish, what can you do to begin moving? I read a book by Scott McKnight, in my view, the greatest New Testament scholar in America. He wrote a book on fasting, and he said one of the reasons that people bring food to people when they've experienced loss is because our bodies shut down when we've experienced real tragedy, and finding your body matters. So I don't know if that's where you're at. These are more reflections, but there's something to be said about your body and its relationship with grief, pain, hopelessness, despair. That's going to be a lot of this chapter, is finding your way back into your physicality and movement. Page 97. Hope and hopelessness and despair. Hope is a way of thinking, a cognitive process. Yes, emotions play a role, but hope is made up of what researcher C.R. Snyder called a trilogy of goals, pathways, and agency. She unpacks that. We have the ability to set realistic goals. I know where I want to go. We're able to figure out how to achieve these goals, including the ability to stay flexible and develop alternative pathways. I know how to get there, I'm persistent, and I can tolerate disappointment and try new paths again. And we have agency. We believe in ourselves. I can do this. I believe in myself is an interesting one there. There is, I've said this a handful of times, but confidence comes from the word with trust. If you have self-confidence, you trust yourself. Goals, pathways, agency. Agency is a big Enneagram word for your body. Goals, I think, is a good future kind of oriented image. Pathways, that feels very present. I'm not sure if there's a triad there, but it's certainly about getting into that future focus and that physical focus that we need to move. I would want to say more about hope. Actually, let me quote one last thing from her. She says, children with high levels of hopefulness have experience with adversity. They've been given the opportunity to struggle, and in doing that, they learn how to believe in themselves and their abilities. There is something, I think, here about, she kind of comes back to a handful of times in terms of not too much, not too little, like the right amount of struggle, and that builds up those interior muscles, and that's valuable, I think. Hope, for me, I think we need to go further than just like being able to envision where we're going. In my view, hope is very connected to courage. Hope and courage are fuels. They are, hope is a theological virtue in the Christian tradition. It's faith, hope, and love. Hope ends up having that future orientation, as she's saying, but it's tied to courage in my view. And courage is the ability to enact the dictates of wisdom. Wisdom is telling you what you ought to do. Wisdom is showing you the beauties of the world. Wisdom is informing your experience. And courage says you can meet that. And what hope does is it gives the fuel. It gives the fuel for courage. It's really difficult to be courageous without hope. So I would want to go just that step further. Yes, it's about your future. Yes, it's about like pushing into dreams and ambitions. But sometimes, hope can actually be much more ethereal, even invisible. Like my hope is based in my hope for humanity. My hope is based in the work of God in my life. My hope is based on just the belief that the arc of the universe bends towards justice. Fuel for what we're enduring and going through. Hope that my life will be better. Hope that things get better, even though this present moment just sucks and it's gonna suck for a while. That strikes me as a healthy place to allow our minds to go when things just suck. To name that they suck, but that things get better. And obviously many of you will know those who have done much more work than me on the it gets better side of things. Hopelessness and despair, page 101. In the despair research, the word hopeless is often used synonymously with despair, but in the research on hopelessness, we see very few mentions of the concept of despair. Let's break this down. Pause there. I thought that was fascinating. Despair research uses hopeless all the time. Hopeless research does not use despair. She writes, while hope is not an emotion, hopelessness and despair are emotions. Hopelessness arises out of a combination of negative life events and negative thought patterns, particularly self-blame, inward, and the perceived inability to change our circumstances, outward. Negative thought patterns, negative life events, these are emotions that we experience based on that inward and outward experience. I do like, by the way, hope is not an emotion. It's not hope is a virtue. Hope is an excellence, a human excellence that makes for the foundation for happiness. This is what virtues are. But hopelessness is different. And I like that there's that inward outward naming of the source here. She continues, hopelessness stems from not being able to set realistic goals. We don't know what we want. We don't know what we want. There's the Enneagram. And if we can identify realistic goals, we can't figure out how to achieve them. So there's an execution question. If we attempt to achieve the goals, we give up when we fail. We can't tolerate disappointment, and we can't reset. Last, we don't believe in ourselves or our ability to achieve what we want. Notice all the language of what you want all over this. One of the most valuable things for me in terms of Enneagram is just being able to name what you want. And sometimes your primary motive, your primary desire, given your pattern, your type, kind of gets poo-pooed or dismissed, or you shouldn't actually push into that. Man, sometimes this is the place of stability, is just to say, what do I want, and grab hold of it. Especially when you're in stress. For a lot of us, with the exception, if I may say it, with the exception of 4s and 5s, we go to a different center in stress and are employing its tools. And sometimes just the best move to just get grounded again is to embrace full-heartedly our center. So for me, I'm a 1. When I'm in stress, I go into 4 space. In 4 space, I'm in my heart and emotions, right? And this would color a lot of what she's saying, and maybe as a 1, this is why she comes to the topic this way. But if I'm in my emotions all day long, that can be a restorative thing for me. But I don't want to live in stress. So what does it look like for me to not live in stress? It means re-engaging my body. My body is my primary center as a 1, right? And so just the question, how do I get into my body, will not only move me out of stress, it's going to center me, ground me back in my type. And I can start asking, kind of primary questions. What are you made for? What are you building? What are you executing? These are the places that I'm going to find a lot of joy, satisfaction, and happiness. 8s are similar on this front. 8s move into 5 space in stress. You can get stuck in your head as an 8, withdrawn thinking. What does it look like for you to get out of stress? Get out of your withdrawn thinking. Get into that physical space as an 8. And all the types kind of work like this. That name, how do I get out of, for a 6? How do I get out of my emotions in 3 space? How do I get back into my thinking and head space? That's a grounding space for the 6. Anyway, I think we could talk quite a bit about that movement. Quote 9 for me. Despair is a sense of hopelessness. Okay, now we're going to move to despair. Despair is a sense of hopelessness about a person's entire life and future. When extreme hopelessness seeps into all of the corners of our lives and combines with extreme sadness, we feel despair. I once heard theologian Rob Bell define despair as the belief that tomorrow will be just like today. Rob Bell is a 7, and that feels like being stuck to me. When we are in struggle and or experiencing pain, despair, that belief that there is no end to what we're experiencing is a desperate and claustrophobic feeling we can't figure a way out of or through the struggle and the suffering. Thing that I heard here, which I've never thought about, is you'll know this about me. I love high side, low side thinking. And I've never thought about it temporally. So there's a high side and low side to future thinking. There's a high side, low side to past thinking. I suppose we did a lot of work on the past in some of those previous chapters. But here it's there's this low side future thinking. Tomorrow's just going to be like today. That's a correctly said. It's a despairing way of coming to the world. What does high side future thinking look like? What does high side present thinking look like? I imagine a lot of flow state, successful actors, athletes, people that execute well have the ability to go high side with their present thinking. A lot of us who wrestle with the past can go low side on the past. These are all the terrible things that happened to me, and not go high side. I have that temptation for sure. Something worth naming there. Quote 10 for me, page 102. When I look at examples of hope practices, she's going to use that phrase a handful of times, hope practices, as though, again, hope is an excellence, it's a virtue. Virtues are, it's like training muscles. So associating this with practice, good move. When I look at examples of hope practices in our research, I see commitments to a new way of thinking about what we want to achieve and why. We need to learn how to reality check our goals and pathways to them, and how to take the shame out of having to start over many, many times when our first plans fail. Commitment to new ways of thinking. That can be real difficult. That, like, I've heard about therapists that a primary for therapists is trying to initiate something like change things. You have to initiate change in the person in front of you, because so often we get in the ruts, and part of therapy is making something new happen. That thinking is a place for that. Like, new patterns of life can be real valuable. New relationships can be real valuable, and new ways of thinking can be real valuable. There's 3 centers. What does it look like to escape hopelessness? It might be really changing something in your 3 centers. You want a solution to that feeling of stuckness? What can you do differently with your body? Different types of exercises, different types of rhythms, time to quit drinking, time to sleep more, time to, cut out some calories and just feel a little bit better about your weight, time to exercise differently. Like, sometimes, like, I was doing kickboxing for a long time, and then I got a knee injury that wouldn't go away. I had to quit kickboxing because the knee just received trauma when you're kneeing a bag. And I started doing strength training and weightlifting, and really I've just loved the hell out of weightlifting. But I cried publicly. I never cry publicly except for when I'm on a microphone. I was in my kickboxing gym and just broke down because I couldn't continue doing this thing that I loved. And the transition to weight strength training was actually really, really helpful for me. New relationships. This is something that I've been thinking quite a bit about, because I'm kind of in a place where I'm transitioning a lot of my relationships. Who is it that cares about you? Who is it that actually invests in you? Who is it that isn't a suck on your energy, but seems to actually be the person that you almost take advantage of? Not that way, but like, you just assume that they're always there because they're so steady. Like, a lot of us waste so much of our energy chasing people who aren't going to love us and don't give us the attention we crave. And this has just been a thought for me. It's like, who actually are the good relationships that I have, and just pouring more energy into those. And then this, like, new ways of thinking. I need paper for this, and to write down my bad thinking. And I need helpful, books, helpful people who are writing for me to think new and different thoughts. And I often need to write down those thoughts. I need to memorize them. And I don't know, this is the work, it seems to me. Breaking, deconstruction is bigger than just getting rid of your religious beliefs. Deconstruction often looks like this. You need to deconstruct some of the old ways and build up the new ways. When doing that, that strikes me as purposeful, intentional, future-focused, setting a new foundation. Sometimes you really do need to grieve what has happened in the past and move forward. We'll talk quite a bit about that here in a minute, but it's all valuable to me. 103. We all fear pain and struggle, but they are often necessary for growth. And more important, they don't present the level of danger that hopelessness and despair bring to us. I like that she's elevating pain and struggle as a value. And this builds on what she was saying with kids and their ability to, hope is kind of dependent on your endurance. And those are in contrast. Being able to engage pain and struggle in healthy ways versus hopelessness and despair. I think that's helpful and well worth meditating on. Quote 12 for me at the bottom of 103. Permanence. Permanence can be tough for me. So I've developed the habit of asking myself, I'm really scared, worried, and overwhelmed, stressed about what's happening. Will this issue be a big deal in 5 minutes, in 5 hours, in 5 days, in 5 months, in 5 years? I've been doing it for about a year. I started it during the pandemic, and now I try to sink into fear until I've asked and answered these questions. If nothing else, it pulls my thinking brain online instead of letting my fear brain run the show. Interesting that she's juxtaposing thinking and fear, because I put those together, but it is the question, like addressing your fear with stabilizing thought processes. And I do like I just keep coming back to this guy reflection. Sometimes you hit a wall of pain and you just have to say, this is gonna suck until it doesn't suck anymore. And you lose that job. It's gonna suck until it doesn't suck anymore. You lose that relationship. It's gonna suck until it doesn't suck anymore. And you lose. There's all sorts of things that we lose. Income, kids move away, we get ill. It's gonna suck until it doesn't suck anymore. I like this in terms of 5 days. Will this be over in 5 days, 5 months, 5 years? Helpful. 104, sadness. She starts, okay, she asks, what's your favorite sad movie? Of all things, like I got really into, if you have not seen it, you gotta find it. There's a trailer out for I Play Rocky, which is like it's a movie biopic, as it were, or it's a Stallone biopic, I suppose, about when he was writing the Rocky movies. And I cried through the whole thing. I just cried through the whole trailer and went and kind of, again, I've said this, but I just kind of had a hard week. Went and put on Rocky. There are great movies that have been filmed, and then there's great movies. It might just be me. If you haven't actually seen Rocky, treat yourself. Rocky is a great movie, and I cried through the whole thing. And it might just be me. Ambition, like being beat up over and over again, and just the elevation of endurance and love just touches my heart deeply. Cried through the whole thing. Anyway, she says, what's your favorite sad movie? And then she lists a bunch of them. Life is Beautiful, Inside Out, Brokeback Mountain, every movie ever made where a dog dies. Not only was I curious about the films, she says, because she took this poll, I became obsessed with analyzing the descriptors and the reasons that people reacted to my poll and told me why they love these films. Beautifully devastating, so relatable, what it means to be human. A ball every time I see it, but it's also an incredibly joyful film. I felt less alone. Owning our sadness, she concludes, is courageous. To be human is to know sadness. And owning that sadness is courageous and a necessary step in finding our way back to ourselves. Courage and hope, there it is. They go together. I don't know how else to say this in terms of sadness. Like, it's like the vulnerability that it takes to engage sadness, valuable. Sometimes our sadness gets spurred out in really unhealthy ways towards other people because we don't know how to just sit with the sadness, name it, elevate what mattered to us. And as she said, find our way back to ourselves and each other. again, kind of I'm going to just keep coming back to this. Returning to center matters. Like what Stabile's book, The Road Back to You, is about getting grounded and centered at some level in your type. Like, what does it look like for you to rediscover yourself? You exist. Sometimes you lose yourself, especially in hard, shattering moments. It takes courage to find yourself, to name who you are, to elevate your value. That strikes me as a real value, insightful, just insightful there. So, quote 14 for me on page 108. My research has taught me that acknowledging and naming our own sadness is critical in the formation of compassion and empathy. In our saddest moments, we want to be held by or feel connected to someone who has known the same ache, even if what caused it is completely different. I'm really aware of how much I lack empathy, and I'm really aware of how much I want other people to see me and understand me when I'm in pain. These make me a immature human being most of the time. But she's exactly right. I mean, it is those who have suffered who can actually go to those places most easily for the sake of others. And that's prima facie just valuable. Compassion and empathy are great-making characteristics. These are virtues. They make a human being far more great than they otherwise would be. Quote 15, sadness moves the individual, us, toward the collective us. I don't know if I wrote it or if somebody else did, but it's become part of my vocabulary that there is no them, there's only us, is a great mantra, especially for a country like ours, struggles like ours, families like ours, churches like ours, communities like ours, workplaces like ours. There is no them, there's only us. It's real easy to like rip other people down over there until you realize that they are us. Sadness moves the individual us towards the collective us. If you were to read, again, I'm kind of going theological here. If you were to read the beginning of the book of Romans, it's all about how we're all in the same boat. We're all going to die. We're going to die because we're all screwed up and death is coming for us. This unites us. We are united in death. Kennedy builds on this when he talks it through, his reflections on the Cuban Missile Crisis. Kennedy came out and in pushing for a pause on the development of nuclear weapons said something to the effect of, we all breathe the same air. We all inhabit this small planet. We all, cherish our children and our children's future. I'm butchering that quote, but what is it that unites us really matters, and naming those things matter. The fact that we are sad is a unifying, a communal, dare we say, kind of place. And with that, she turns to grief. So 110 ends with grief. Lots to say here, and I may spend a little too much time here, but oh well. This is 110 and 111. One writer says a central process in grieving is the attempt to reaffirm or reconstruct a world of meaning that has been challenged by loss. Grief and meaning going together, I think, is real interesting. We're looking for why did this happen in our grief, is I think there's an assumption here. She builds on that. In my research, 3 foundational elements of grief emerged from the data: loss, longing, and feeling lost. So starting with loss, she writes, while death and separation are tangible losses associated with grief, some of the participants describe losses that are more difficult to identify or describe. These include the loss of normality, the loss of what could be, and the loss of what we thought we knew or understood about something or someone. I naively would have just associated grief with death and a loved one, but grief is far more encompassing of other areas of our life. I've really benefited from and highly recommend the work of Mandy Capehart. We've had Mandy on the show before, but she has a fantastic presence online, and you can find her work. It's Capehart, Capehart, Mandy Capehart. Very wise, grounded, direct, talks quite a bit about kind of the kaleidoscopic experience of grief that we can experience in terms of things changing, like losing a job, losing a friendship, losing something new just happens. And anyways, I'm not doing justice to her work, but lots to say there in terms of grief being much more than just someone dying. We can lose things, losing a future. This is something that she and I talked about a while back, but I had an envisioned future of how things were going to be, and then something happened, and I don't have that future anymore. And I needed to grieve that. I needed to grieve the loss of that future and what could have happened. So that, to go back to that hope stuff, so that I can re-envision, okay, well, what does the future look like? And that's some of that work. Dr. Brown continues, longing. Related to loss is longing. Longing is not conscious wanting. It's an involuntary yearning for wholeness, for understanding, for meaning, for the opportunity to regain or even simply touch what we've lost. Longing is a vital and important part of grief, yet many of us feel we need to keep our longings to ourselves for fear we will be misunderstood, perceived as engaging in magical or unrealistic thinking, or lacking in fortitude and resilience. A ton of stuff going on here. Longing, obviously, is about what you want. And Enneagram's about what you want. Longing is not conscious wanting, though. So that depthy, like the depthiest parts of ourselves have longings that are often unvoiced. And I think she's just entirely right that this is like, you want to find vulnerability, it's here. That like showcasing your heart and what you want, unveiling your heart exposes. And she's right. Many of us feel we need to keep our longings to ourselves for fear we will be misunderstood, perceived as engaging in magical, unrealistic thinking, or lacking in fortitude and resilience. Keep that buried. What a tragedy. There's a couple places in my life where I feel like I overshare. Here's what I want. And I'll kick myself 12 times for sharing it. And I feel like recently I just keep coming back to the reflection. No, this is who I want to be. I want to be the person who dreams big and tells people what I want, tells people how much I love them, tells people how much they matter to me, tells people that this is what I hope for and want to build. That's just me, and you can hear the oneness all over this, but like I want to be that person. And sometimes you get rejected in those spaces, and that's entirely as it should be. Feeling lost, she writes, grief requires us to reorient every part of our physical, emotional, and social worlds. Grief requires us to reorient every part of our physical, emotional, and social worlds. When we imagine the need to do this, most of us picture the painful struggle to adjust to a tangible change, such as someone dying or moving away. But this is a very limited view of grief. Kind of talked about that already. The more difficult it is for us to articulate our experiences of loss, longing, and feeling lost to the people around us, the more disconnected and alone we feel. Talking about grief is difficult in a world that wants us to get over it, or a community that's quick to pathologize grief. I think this is spot on. I'm definitely part of the problem here. I want to help people fix their problems and move on. The thing about pain, and I say this all the time, but the thing about pain is nobody can experience your pain. Only you can experience your pain. You can't see my pain or experience my pain for me. pain is just one of these subjective things, and yet we all experience pain. And so we know that I'm having this internal experience, you're having this internal experience. There's something shared there, but they're different. How do we engage that? Really important there. That image of grief, feeling lost, longing, driving us into places where we feel alone matters. The inability to be seen completely in one's suffering, that's a hard space to be. And I want to say, like, so much of this chapter is this is the human experience. Like I find these sorts of things like disruptions something to move through, and just the more that, like, I'm kind of, I'm past 50. It feels like, no, this is the human experience, that you're gonna hit spaces of this sort and experience what it means to be a human being, embodied, mind, heart, soul, etc. I keep thinking back to a conversation I had on Unlocking Us with the grief expert David Kessler. I'll never forget him saying this. Each person's grief is as unique as their fingerprint, but what everyone has in common is that no matter how they grieve, they share a need for their grief to be witnessed. That doesn't mean needing someone to try to lessen it or reframe it for them. The need is for someone to be fully present to the magnitude of their loss without trying to point out the silver lining. I don't know that we can actually understand somebody else's pain. I do think that this is wise, that one can at least say, I understand that you're in pain, and I will sit in your pain with you until we don't need to sit here anymore. I find that really valuable, and probably a good place to land. I don't know where you're at. If you want to talk about this, we're meeting on Tuesdays. And if you don't join us, that's entirely fine. But I'm the one leading this discussion, just as someone who may not know you, may not know where you're at. It may be the case that you and I both are just in spots that are really tough right now. And at least we can know that we're at some level in it together. So I'm cheering for you. I'm cheering for your heart. Cheering for your mind to have perspective. I'm cheering for the good relationships you have to thrive. I'm cheering for your body to stand up and to feel its breath, to take in the beauties of the world and all that's been made, to ground yourself, that you would have a healthy appetite, and that you would have a perspective that sees a future for you that is unfolding in magical and wonderful ways. May all good things be yours.